So as you can hear from my voice, I am not British, I'm not English, I'm French, although my father's side were Greeks, and so my English has become a bit rusted. I will try, and I'm not used to making talks, and this is a personal story, personal talk. It's not a historian's talk. Just wanted to make that introduction also, and I'm whenever I can, I will always try and honor the memory of Princess Alice and her descendants for, in fact, the saving of my family, and also to transmit this extraordinary story. I'm basing my talk on audio recordings that were done in '85, that my brother Patrick recorded my father in '85. Unfortunately, they are in French and they are not of very good quality, but everything that I will be telling you is based on that. It's based on documents and the memorandum that my father had prepared for Yad Vashem for the recognition of Princess Alice as righteous among the nations. I'm not used to doing Zooms, but I shall try and do some sharing whenever I can. A quick introduction. So I live in the countryside, and after having worked in the hotel industry mainly, and also with my father, I retired a few years ago, and I'm a glass artist now. I work on memory, on inherited objects, and a photographer. So this is a piece called The Book of Remembrance in French, and it's a Patte de Verre book that has been purchased by the Musée Niepce in France. So they are of my family. And when I started doing that piece, I never expected that it would be ever bought by a museum. So now they will be there for a very long time. So this is a very quick introduction concerning me. I would like to talk about slightly more about Princess Alice. This is Hugo Wirth did a biography quite a few years ago that was, in fact, commissioned by Prince Philip. She was a beautiful lady. She was born in 1885 in Windsor Castle. She was the great-granddaughter of Queen Victoria. At a very early age, it was discovered that she was deaf, and she learned to lip read from very early on. I'm looking at my notes, in 1903, she married the youngest son of King George I of Greece, of Denmark. I mean, he was from Danish origins, but he was the king of Greece at the time. And so she went to live in Athens. She had 4 daughters. Here we have a nice photograph of the 4 daughters, and later on she had Philip, and this is Philip at when they lived in France. Princess Alice, their story, I'm getting, sorry, I will say that better. They lived in Athens, but there was the Greece political situation was not was complex at the time, and at various periods they had to go on exile. And Prince Philip was, I think, a few months old when they had to go to exile to France. Princess Alice didn't have an easy life. I would say, with her husband. And they were separated when they went to live in France at the end of the 10s and the early 20s. And she had a period where she was sick, and she only returned to Greece in the mid-30s because she felt that she had to be with the Greeks that she considered her people. And she had lost more or less contact with her husband, for sure, and with her son that was educated, Prince Philip, that was educated in England. And her 4 daughters by then, who were older, had been married to Germans who had become Nazis. I will share again a few photographs maybe. And now I will get on to Greece. Greece, Salonica, which is here, was not part of Greece, or became part of Greece only in 1912, and I will explain that. And the main cities where there were Greeks was Athens. There were few of them, in Volos, Larissa, Trikala, and Yanina, and there was also Corfu. I will tell you a bit about how we come to why Princess Alice did save my family. And for that, I have to explain a bit who my grandparents and great-grandparents were. My great-grandfather was called Elia. He was from Larissa, and when he was young, about 18, he was a hawker. And he left Larissa to go to Trikala, which I showed you just on the map, which was at that time quite an important city in Greece. And from being, he was born in the 1825, something like that. And from a hawker, he became a banker and also a landowner, and did quite a lot of philanthropic activities in Trikala. And he was very well recognized both by the small Jewish community. There were under 200 families living in Trikala at that time, and the rest of the Jewish population of Trikala. So what happened was that the King George I came on various occasions to Trikala. One of the occasions was because there had been a flood and he wanted to support the population. And so the only place where they could be received and hébergé, how do you say that in English? Stay, was at my great-grandfather's house, because that was the one that was the most important one of Trikala. So there were various occasions when he came and stayed, and he came and stayed with some members of his family. Here we have a photo of King George I, my grandmother Rachel, Prince Andrew, who was the husband of Princess Alice, my grandfather Haimki, and his father Evy Cohen. So from documents that I have, this is probably a photo of 1912. From documents that I have from my father, it seems that the Princess Alice had come on various occasions also. King George came a few times. From newspaper clips, it's mentioned that he enjoyed being in the company of Haimki and Evy Cohen, and he would be having discussions on religions, amongst other things. So it seems that there's a trait between King George I, Princess Alice, and Prince Philip about interfaith interests and dialogues. This is another photo where we see my uncle. I will tell you about Elie, who was very young. He was maybe 3 years old then. Tilde, who was my aunt, and King George, my grandmother Rachel, Prince Andrew again, Haimki and Elia here on the side. And this is 1912. So my grandfather, I have to tell you about my grandfather. My grandfather was born in 1871, and he married Rachel, who was from Salonica. At the time, Salonica was under Ottoman ruling. They had 5 children. The first child was Tilde. She was born in 1905. Then came Elie, 1906. My father, Alfred, known as Freddie, in 1909. Then there was Isaac, called Jacques, in 1911, and Michel, the youngest, in 1914. So this is a quick introduction concerning my family. In 1913, during the Balkan Wars, Salonica came under the Greek sovereignty. Salonica, at the beginning of the 20th century, was the largest Jewish city as far as percentages are concerned, i.e., the majority of the city were Jews. And it comprised from 75 to 80,000 Jews. They were mostly Sephards. There had been a few Ashkenazis who had moved at various periods, but mainly it was Sephards. And it was quite a thriving city. The Jews under the Ottoman ruling enjoyed liberty of movement, liberty of commerce, liberty also in their faith and synagogues. So 1913, as I said, Salonica becomes Greek. King George I is assassinated, and his son Constantin, who had also been coming to my grandparents' house in Trikala, became the new king. And my grandfather was asked if he would go to Salonica with his family to help, should I say it, as a go-between, to help with the members of the community I'm not finding my words tonight, I'm sorry. The Jews were afraid that they would be losing their liberties coming under Greeks, because Greece was mainly Greek Orthodox. And therefore, that's where my grandfather Haimki played this role. He accompanied on various occasions Rabbi Meir to audiences with the king and also to members of the government. And so they were more or less assured that the Jewish community of Salonica would maintain their freedom. And but then there was the Second World War, and so Haimaki went back with his family to Trikala and only returned to Salonica in 1917. And there I have, and he became the first member. He's running here for Parliament. Sorry, this was in 13, and he became the first member of Parliament, first Jew member of Parliament. Here we have a photo of the family in the 20s. My father here, Jacques, Elie, the youngest Michel, my grandmother, Rachel, Tilde, the aunt, and my grandfather. And here we have another document where Haimaki is running for the Senate, and this is in 1932. So from this, we understand that Haimaki was an important member of the Jewish community also. He was the president of various charities and medical institutions, the Bikur Olim amongst. So, and they had remained in Salonica for until 1941. In 41, this is a photo of Tilde, my father, Haimaki, and Rachel in 1941. So when the Italians first invaded Greece, and the Jews were, it's not till 1943 when the Germans totally took over Greece that the Jews were taken to Auschwitz. The Italians had surrendered in 1943. Salonica, which had, by that time, there were probably something like 60,000 Jews in Salonica. Over a 2-month period in 1943, they were all taken to the death camps. I think it's 46. Salonica had about 55,000 Jews by then, and 42,000 were immediately taken to the gas chambers. My family by then had moved to Athens, where there was a small community and it had become bigger. They, in 43, they went into hiding. My grandfather, Haimaki, had died of illness in January. And so they went into hiding in various places. And at one stage, they found 3 Protestant ladies who had a farm just outside of Athens and who took them in. And they thought they had found the good hiding place. I have to say that the Greeks then were overall, that's what my father says, and I have read about this, that overall the Greeks were very good with the Jews. There were partisans in the mountains that would take in children and families. The police gave true, false identity papers. So they felt that they were safe. Unfortunately, the friends of my father overheard a conversation whereby they had other friends who asked about the Cohen families, that they were worried how they were doing and whether they were in a safe place. And that person replied, "Don't worry about the Cohens. They are very well at the Krisaki farm. So once this was said, their hiding place was not anymore. So they had to find a new hiding place. The three elder brothers, they wanted to leave Greece and join the government in exile and the free forces that were in Cairo at the time. But for that, they needed to put in safety the two women, my grandmother Rachel and my aunt Tilde. Michelle, the youngest, was meant to be safe, hiding on an island. It didn't turn out to be the case in the end, but they thought that it was. So my father writes in the memorandum that he did for Yad Vashem that on a sleepless night, trying to find solutions, how to, where they could go into hiding. No, before that, I forgot, sorry. One day he sees that there's a royal car that is driving in Athens. And he was very astonished because he knew that the royals were in exile and had left Greece. And so he inquired, and he was told that Princess Alice had returned. She had no money of her own, and she was doing popular soups for the Athenians, and she was working with the Red Cross and the Swedish Cross, and so he was informed that Princess Alice had remained, or had remained. And so he says, on a sleepless night, trying to find solutions, he said, well, it's easy. The solution is that the ladies will go and stay with Princess Alice, and we, the boys, will join the free forces that are in Egypt. So he unites the family in the morning, and he tells them, this is what we're going to be doing. And they thought that he was crazy. And it was a crazy idea. But they said, okay, let's try it. But how do we get to connect with Princess Alice? They themselves didn't know Princess Alice, and they were quite sure that by that time Princess Alice had totally forgotten the time when she had been to Trikala as a very young wife, 20 years before or 30 years before. So I have to say that my father was a lawyer by then, and he was also well introduced in the political sphere. So they found a lady that they knew played cards with Princess Alice. She was a great smoker and playing cards. And so they contacted her and asked her if she would be the go-between and see if Princess Alice would have a solution for the two ladies. And the lady said, I will get back to you in 3 days. And here I want to read the exact words that my father wrote for Yad Vashem, because I think it's very poignant. On the day we were due to receive news, my sister and I went to the road near Prince George's residence, where Princess Alice was staying. If I put my glasses on, I will see better. My sister was wearing a veil to prevent anyone from recognizing her. she was stopped by a lady, Mrs. Sofoulis, the wife of the former prime minister, who was coming down the path on the opposite side of the road and wanted to find out what was happening with us. My sister took the opportunity to explain our situation. At that moment, the door that we were standing near to opened and a lady came out. Mrs. Sofoulis introduced us and said she was Mrs. Delignani, her best friend, and that it was her who could put us in contact with Princess Alice. For us, it was an absolute miracle. He goes on and says, in short, Mrs. Delignani was on the palace grounds, and an hour later, we were informed that Princess Alice would be more than happy to take in my mother and sister. Princess Alice couldn't believe how coincidental it was. She had just given a negative response to the other lady, fearing that she might not keep the secret. The princess didn't know how to get in contact with us to let us know of her true intentions. So what is absolutely amazing here is, and my father says it in the audio, it's as if it was in a film, but it was not film, it was reality. If it hadn't been that they were at the right time, in the right place, they would never have managed to have my grandmother and aunt staying with the princess. Anyway, this is one of the beauties of life, that it does happen. And in their case, they were very lucky. It was not the case, of course, of 6 million of Jews. The same evening, the two ladies were taken in the princess' residence. She put at their disposition a 2-room apartment on the 3rd floor where she was staying. She took, before receiving them, she united her whole staff and said to them, an old nanny of my children with her daughter will be coming and staying with us. They are under Hitler's threat, and I expect from you that you will help them in any way you can. So she clearly even said, even if she didn't say that they were Jews, she clearly said that that they were, and indeed, the two ladies remained for 15 months from. Did I say that this was in September 43? And they remained even after the war for another month or two until they retrieved their apartment. So in December 44. My uncle Michel, in the end, was not safe at all. And he moved in the apartment at the residency. And the two women never dared tell Princess Alice that that he had come, because it was a man, and for some reason they didn't dare. Princess Alice would often come and visit the two women. They would have long discussions in French, mainly on religion and Jewish faith. And then Michel would have, that's the little story, a funny little story, would have to hide, would have to stay in the small kitchen and not move at all and not make any noise. he was in his late 20s and he probably did suffer not to have been able to join his brothers, who had managed under difficult conditions, but they managed to take a small boat, cross the Aegean Sea from mainland Greece to Turkey, and from Turkey they were flown over to Cairo, where they each held important positions in the government in exile. And so the princess, sorry, it is difficult to make a talk where there's no noise coming back and no reaction. So I'm sorry if it doesn't sound all the time very fluid. Some energies are not there, but I'm trying my best. Anyway, so Princess Alice clearly took my family in. If it hadn't been for her, the whole family would have perished. That's 90% for sure. And I wouldn't be here to tell you the story. It was very difficult for her because she had 4 daughters that were, well, 3 daughters by then, because one had, unfortunately, she had perished in a plane accident. She had 3 daughters that were married to Nazis, and a son fighting with the British. The Gestapo, I understand, was their quarters was right across from her residency. And apparently, one day the Gestapo came in, and because they might have heard that there was that she was hiding some Jews, and she used her deafness she showed that she couldn't understand what they were talking about or what they wanted, and they finally left without ever getting any further possibility to look into the building. She was a very, very, very clever woman and an extraordinary humanitarian. Did I tell you that Athens was there was very little food at that time, and she managed with nothing to do amazing popular soups. I'm looking at my notes about everything that I should be saying. After the war, Princess Alice remained in Greece, and she would often come and visit my aunt in their apartment. And I think that I have more documents to share. So that was before the war. These are photos that I've taken from internet stock, and this is in the 50s. She went to the States to get money because she created she became a nun, and she created her own religious Greek Orthodox community. She had become a Greek Orthodox by then, and this is probably during the wedding of someone from her family. I thought it was a beautiful photo and a way to pay tribute also to Prince Philip. And the next one, okay, so I will be talking to you now about, if I haven't forgotten anything, is how do we come to Yad Vashem recognizing Princess Alice as righteous among the nations. In 1988, my parents went for their last time to Israel. They were very good friends with Teddy Kollek, who was the first mayor of Jerusalem and the founder of the Jerusalem Foundation. And Teddy, who knew the story of my father, mentioned that Princess Alice remains had just been transferred to the Mount of Olives, to St. Mary's Russian Orthodox Church, where she had wished to be buried. She wanted to be buried there because her aunt, Ella, who was the Grandduchess of Russia, had founded that religious community, and they had been massacred, of course, and she was a model for Princess Alice. And finally, in '88, Princess Alice died in '69 in London. She had left Greece in '67 under the dictature. Prince Philip did everything he could to get her out of Greece then. And so in '88, Princess Alice was finally transferred to Jerusalem. And that's when Yad Vashem asked my father if he would write the memorandum. So my parents lived at the time in Switzerland, and he wrote the memorandum. He finalized it in '89, I believe, but he didn't send it off. And he didn't send it off because he felt at the time that the political situation was not there, because of the relations between Israel and Great Britain, and that it would be very difficult for the royal, for Prince Philip to receive the nomination in the name of his mother then. And my father died in December 1990. The first thing my mother did in '91 was to send off the report. And it took another 2 to 3 years for the recognition to be able to be held, first in London, and then in '94 in Jerusalem, when Prince Philip with his sister Sophie came to Israel. It was a private visit, but the ceremony was held at Yad Vashem. I have to add that at the same time, there was Princess Alice, who was recognized as righteous among the nations, but there were also the Christakis, Desmoten Puris, who was a friend of the family and a friend of Princess Alice, and who was the go-between between when the three brothers were in Egypt and the ladies in the residence. She would do the links. The communication links, and also Jean and François Vakaris, who helped my family. I have a photo of, here we have Prince Philip planting the tree at Yad Vashem. We have here at the back my uncle Michel, who was alive then, and here we have Princess Sophie I would like to read an extract of Prince Philip's talk at Yad Vashem when he received on behalf of his mother the recognition. We did not know, and as far as we know, she never mentioned to anyone, he's talking of his mother, Princess Alice, that she had given refuge to the Cohen family at a time when all Jews in Athens were in great danger of being arrested and transported to the concentration camps. In retrospect, this reticence may seem strange, but I suspect that it never occurred to her that her action was in any way special. She would have considered it to be a perfectly natural human reaction to fellow beings in distress. You must also bear in mind that she had been well aware of the Nazi persecution of the Jews for many years. So here we have the extraordinary Princess Alice, who I would qualify as a human being, a humanitarian, and probably the best of the human beings one can think of. To the peril of her life, she took in a family who was at risk, and it was really to the peril of her life. Now, what other photos do I have to share? I think I have some more. Oh, okay. So here we, so 1994 was a private visit. I went with my mother. My father, of course, was dead by then, and I went with my mother and my uncle. In 2018, Prince William visited Israel and Palestine, but visited Israel on the first official visit of any member of the royal family. There had been private visits of Prince Charles and other members, but this was the first official visit. And I was invited to meet with Prince William. I took along with me the next generation, which a little cousin of mine called Philippe Cohen. And we met with Prince William. It was a very moving moment because we could express again our eternal gratitude to Princess Alice and her descendants. And after the meeting with Prince William, I went to the Church of St. Mary's on the Mount of Olives, the Russian Orthodox Church. And here I am by her coffin, and at the back we have her lineage, her Russian lineage there. And so I'm writing in the book of the guest book, but I think I prefer the French word, le livre d'or. So this is what I wrote then. I would like to say a few words before I finish my talk, and maybe there are some questions. I would like to, I think I'm checking my notes. I don't think I have forgotten anything really. I would like to say a few words about my father after the war. He returned to, there was this, right after the World War II, there was the civil war in Greece. And he became the director of the Joint for the northern Greece. And for over 2 years, he he was the director, and he did a certain number of activities to help with the Jewish community, or what remained of the Jewish community. And amongst the things that he did, he obtained, because he knew quite a lot of members of the government, and specifically in the Justice Department, he obtained various laws, or he was the cheville ouvrière. He's not alone in this, I have to clearly say, but he was the thinker of a very important law called later Au Pays, which was in 1946. Here we have it. On January 1946, the law was passed so that the belongings of the Jews who that had disappeared, massacred in the camps, and who had no family, that those fortunes were to be given to a body that was to be created, and was created later on, for the aim to provide help and rehabilitation to the Greek Jews. We are in 1946. This is the very first law in Europe. We have to wait until the 90s to obtain such laws in a certain number of countries. This is the perseverance, the incredible intelligence and knowledge of public affairs of my father that made this possible. And it was signed by Sophoulis, who was the same member I talked to you earlier on. So I want to say something else that I forgot to say. After the war, he also became I don't know if some of you might have heard of the Zelisbear Conference, which was held in 1947 in a small town in Switzerland. And it was a congress, a Christian Jewish Congress, to understand the cause and combat anti-Semitism. And there he met my mother, who was much younger than him, who was the secretary to the Swiss Jewish delegate. And this is how I come to talk to you today. I will finish with a video extract of 2020, the Holocaust Memorial Day held in Westminster. And I will get it running for you.
Having been informed by friends and by her lady-in-waiting about the plight of Mrs. Cohen and her young daughter, the princess decided to offer her hospitality to the two ladies. In fact, to hide them in her home, and despite the danger this entailed. The princess put a small two-room apartment on the 3rd floor at the disposal of Mrs. Cohen and her daughter. It was thanks to the courageous rescue of Princess Alice that the members of the Cohen family were saved. The members of the Cohen family left the residence 3 weeks after liberation, aware that by virtue of the princess's generosity and bravery had spared them from the Nazis. The great-granddaughter of Rachel Cohen, Evy Cohen, said this 2 years ago. My family would not exist without the courageous act of Princess Alice. Her story of incredible courage must keep being told in her memory. My generation, the past generation, and the future generation are and will eternally be grateful to his great aunt, Princess Alice, for the great act of bravery, risking her own life to take in a family in need.
And here are, for those who would like to look further in, a few links. And also, I have handed over to the Central Archives of the History of the Jewish People in Jerusalem, my father's important archives that are available to scholars and historians. This ends my talk, and I'm sorry if there were some moments of emotions and probably not finding always the words. Again, I wouldn't be alive if it hadn't been for Princess Alice, and this is important that the younger generations understand that there are some courageous people in life and that these acts are major.
Thank you so much, Evie. That was absolutely beautiful. I think we were all, like you, very emotional and finding it difficult to hold in our emotions as well. I've always been fascinated by the story of Princess Alice. You know, when I read about it, and I think it's just incredible that you have this royal princess. We always think of royals that were kind of removed from society, and that they're able to, you know, she was able to make this huge sacrifice at her own risk. And, you know, not only that, she's obviously was also a woman who was also busy helping other people her whole life. And that's absolutely beautiful. So we have somebody asks a question. 1 second. Sorry, I'm just going to spotlight myself. We have a question. The three brothers who went to Cairo, I assume one of them was your father?
Yes.
And did they survive?
Oh, yes, the whole family survived. The whole family survived. And there were also siblings of my grandmother that survived because they had British passports. This is another story, we won't get into that. But they had been taken to camps in Crete earlier on. So the whole family survived. I want to say something else that I forgot to mention before, is that this side of the family survived completely. From my mother's side, her name was Sheps. She had, her mother was Russian Polish and her father was Polish. Her father was the youngest of 16 children, and the eldest had left Poland at the end of the 19th century, and he had got his youngest brother to come and study in Switzerland, engineer. So they survived. But all the chefs that had remained in Lodz, they were all massacred, all of them too. This is not a story that my parents would tell us, my brother Patrick, nor I. I think at the end of the war, they needed to go on with life. They needed to earn money, and they wished for the best for their children. So it was not something that was talked of at all.
I guess I also have a question about Princess Alice's daughters, the two who survived and were married to Nazis, and you showed a picture of one of them coming to the ceremony in Jerusalem, and that must have been a kind of interesting, you know, they were married to Nazis, but
yes,
their feelings.
Actually, yes, actually, there were four daughters. One and her husband with children. They had a plane accident during the war. Sophie, who was the youngest, from what I understand, although she had in the first part of the war, they were Nazis and they were relatively close to Hitler. From reading about her, her husband was killed during the war, and it is said that he was of a group that thought of fomenting a, how to say, not a coup, but against Hitler. So they had turned, they had understood that they had changed their position, I would say. So so that's my answer to that question.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm also interested, like she spent, Princess Alice spent many years in a sanatorium, and she was, you know, was she really mentally unwell, or was this just kind of?
I mean, this is not for me to say.
You don't know. Well, maybe your grandmother would know.
But I can tell you what I know. I never discussed with my grandmother. I mean, the story of Princess Alice and my family, I don't think, I don't ever recall that we talked about it. Don't recall about it. But there was a very good documentary that has been done on Princess Alice. I've put up the link earlier on. She, at one stage in the 20s, yes, she had voices talking to her, and religious voices. But what is for sure is that she was a mystic in her own way. But when she went back to Greece, she was right back on track, if we can put it this way. Again, I'm not a historian. And my father never mentions in any of the audios or the documents that he has left that there was any signs of mental disruption.
I guess I'm suspicious of her husband's motives in putting her in a mental home.
I'm sorry, it was not her husband's at all. Her husband was, I don't talk about him because he was really not an interesting person. And it's her mother that put her in that did put her into a mental place in Switzerland, actually. And she escaped from that.
Wow, thank you. Does anybody have any questions that they'd like to ask in person? Or in the chat if you're very shy? No, I think everyone is.
Maybe I just ask a question about the Greek. Can you say something, what unique is about the Greek people who refused to hand over Jews when the Nazis demanded that Jews should be handed over, I think in various places and islands in Greece and so on. How do you explain how the Greek are different than, you know, other people who didn't act in such a heroic way towards the Jews during the war?
I don't know, because I mean, I've read a bit because of these Zoom talks. The Archbishop, Damas, what was his name? Oh, wait a minute. Damaskinos, I think it was him. He was also recognized as righteous among the nations. And wait, why can't I get out of this? I don't know how to get back in. Oops.
Where are you?
Yeah, I'm back. Sorry. Damaskinos. He was also recognized as righteous among the nations. I don't know. My answer to that is I have no idea. Salonica was for centuries Ottoman. The Jews wanted to remain Ottomans. Then Salonica became Greek. There were very few Jews in the rest of Greece. There were about 2,000 Jews pre-war in Athens. There had been some anti-Semitism. Then Salonica in the 20s and 30s became Hellenized. So it was no more, in brackets, a Jewish city, because there had been exchange of populations with Asia Minor. Greeks from Asia Minor came in, and this was probably the plan of the Greeks anyway. And somehow I think that the Jews, there were big migrations between the 20s and the 30s to the States, to Europe. And somehow the Jews, the Salonican Jews, not assimilated, but continued their way of life in what was known as the Jerusalem of the Balkans, by the way, Salonica. And so the communists at the time, they helped the Jews in the mountains a lot. They held together. That's all that I can say. I can't. It's not for me to say more than my feelings, if you want.
I just wanted to read a few of the comments, because you've probably, when you're talking, you don't have time to look at all the chat, and there's lots of lovely comments. So thank you so much. Princess Alice was a wonderful person. How inspiring. Thank you very much. Thanks for the wonderful talk. Princess Alice is a heroine. An amazing talk. Thank you. So touching. Thank you for the presentation. Thank you very much indeed. Lots of thank yous, and inspirational story. A spellbinding talk told with such heartfelt sentiment. Thank you so much for telling and retelling your story. Here in America, we don't think of Holocaust survivors as remaining in their home countries or in Europe. Our exposure to Holocaust survivors are people who moved here after the war. It's a very different story for those that remained across the pond. Thank you again. Oh, and there's a request, the list of links that you sent earlier. I don't know if you're able to copy and paste it into the chat box, and then people could copy and paste it so that they can click on the links. Do you know how to do that?
Yes, but I need to get the hand. I'm trying to share, but for that I need to get the hand back. Me?
No, you're all you need to do is copy it on the document that it is, and then click in the chat box and press paste, and then people will be able to see it.
For some reason, I'm not getting what I'm trying to share. I'm not getting it. If I go to affichage intervenant, maybe this time.
And we have one more question. She was deaf. How did she communicate?
This I wonder. She knew French. She knew many languages. Oh, and with my family, she would talk in French because my grandmother did not speak Greek. She spoke Greek. Okay, so from I don't know why I'm not getting to I will have to share it differently because I don't know how to do that. I'm sorry.
No, don't share it on the screen. Just copy the words of the links that you had. I think that's what somebody wanted. The list of links you had to all the different programs and
Yes,
so on. And so if you just highlight it with your mouse, press copy, and then paste it in the chat box, and then everyone can. It's easier for people to access it that way.
Okay, let me.
Yeah.
Are you seeing me, or are you seeing something else from my screen?
No, I see the list of the links, but it's very small, and I don't think people can.
I'm trying to do that, and I don't know why it has become like that, but oh, maybe I'm not getting it better. There, here we go.
Right, but can people see that?
I can leave it on for a while.
Yeah, okay, I guess we can leave it on. You can, I think people can press print screen or something and save it. Thank you. I guess I also had, we so often hear about Jews returning to their homes in Poland or, other countries and not being treated very badly by their non-Jewish neighbors after the war. But it seems that your grandparents were able to return home. Your grandmother was able to return to her home without any trouble.
Yes, no, they were, and as I said, my father and was till 47, but this was civil war, so it was other complications.
Yeah.
And then they had to move on. They moved to Paris later on, and I was born in Paris. But yes, there are Jews in Greece today. There is Salonica. I mean, Greece today is holding the European is the chair of the Oh, I forgot that UK has got out of Europe.
I am still in Europe. It's okay.
Where are you from?
We live in Ireland. I am from
right. Okay, so anyway, so Greece is holding the presidency of Europe at the moment, and Salonica. There's a very important museum now in Salonica, Jewish museum, and they are trying. The Salonica is trying to commemorate the Jews. The important contribution the Jews have over the centuries brought to Salonica. And so they're trying to keep that heritage alive. Not the Greek Orthodox, as well as the few Jews that are there today. Thank you very much for inviting me, Rabbi Eli. It's not an easy talk, but here it is, and it is again an important story that has to be told.
So somebody had a couple of questions. You started to say what language your grandmother spoke.
My grandmother, she spoke French. It was a time where Salonica Jews would speak Ladino. They spoke Ladino, of course, and French. My grandfather, who was Haimki from Trikala, he spoke Greek. He had learned French, but his French was not good, and he would, for many years, he would go to Paris and get to learn better French.
Somebody wants to know about how Princess Alice dealt with her deafness. I think probably you should maybe watch the links that you've posted, the documentary about her. Princess Alice, the World's Greatest Secret, and maybe that would probably tell us more about it, correct?
Yes, or the biography.
Or the biography, yes. Thank you so much. I have to say you have much more impressive royal connections than me. My mother always told me that her grandmother had corgis that were related to the Queen's corgis, but you definitely beat us in that department. Really, thank you. Really, absolute honor to meet you. And I'm very impressed with your English skills, much better than my French skills. And probably
I went to school in England.
Ah, okay.
But that was a long time ago.
Yeah, no, really beautiful. And I just think, you know, meeting Princess Alice's descendants must have been a really moving moment for you and for your family.
Yes,
And,
absolutely.
thank you for sharing.